Hello everyone. My life had always been calm, quiet, like every other day, until one unexpected event struck and everything around me changed forever. Sometimes, just one right decision can be enough to place your very life in danger. And in that moment, when all hope seemed lost, I discovered the true meaning of faith. That was the day I was kidnapped, and also the day Officer Nam and his team stepped into a life and death battle deep in the forest to bring me home. That morning, the sky was clear and the breeze was cool. I woke up as usual and tidied the small hut nestled on the hillside. The gentle murmur of the stream, the damp scent of earth and dry leaves, all of it filled me with a strange, quiet peace. I took my hoe and went behind the house, clearing the weeds and pulling out the old banana roots that had fallen. Beads of sweat rolled slowly down my forehead, while sunlight filtered through the leaves, scattering across the soil like strands of golden thread. In that tranquil space, there were only the songs of birds, the whisper of wind through the bamboo, and the steady rhythm of a woman's breath, a woman long accustomed to solitude. I thought to myself, perhaps things have finally settled. The storms have passed, and now all that remains is this small, fragile peace in the humble home I've come to see as the final refuge of my life. But what I couldn't have imagined was that, while I was quietly working, somewhere beyond that distant mountain road, far away, two men had just pulled over by the grassy roadside. The one sitting behind took off his dark glasses and spoke in a low voice. "It should be around here. The old man at the tea stall said he saw a woman in a brown coat crossing the stream this morning." The man in front, clearly the leader, narrowed his eyes and replied in a rough, gravelly tone, "Good. If it's really her, then this will be easy." The roar of the engine broke the stillness, echoing through the valley. The car sped off, leaving a faint trail of dust swirling in the wind. The winding road led deeper into the forest, each turn bringing them closer to the small hut where LyTuCam was living. When they stopped at the forest's edge, the man with the mask crouched down, studying the faint footprints pressed into the damp soil. "Still fresh," he muttered. "She must have passed here just moments ago." The leader gave a slow nod, his eyes cold and unwavering. "Move." On the other side of the hill, LyTuCam was still quietly stacking firewood behind her hut, completely unaware that two dark figures were silently moving closer. A sudden gust of wind swept through, rattling the thatched roof. A few dry leaves drifted down. She looked up, frowning slightly. There was something in the air, something that made her heartbeat quicken. Moments later, the sound of heavy footsteps came from behind. "You're LyTuCam, aren't you?" The voice was deep, strange, calculating. She turned around and froze. Two men in black stood there, their eyes cold and metallic behind dark glasses. One of them stepped closer, forcing a thin smile. "We just want to ask you one thing. The backpack you found the other day. Where is it now?" Everything happened so fast, I could barely make sense of what was unfolding. When I turned back, the two men were already standing right at my door. Their sharp eyes swept across the small hut, cold and deliberate. Before I could speak, a rough hand seized my shoulder and shoved me down onto the bamboo chair. The chair creaked under the force, the roof trembled slightly. My heart pounded, my throat went dry. I tried to steady my voice. I don't know who you're looking for." The heavier one, arms covered in tattoos, sat down across from me. The light from his cigarette cast twisted shadows over his face, making him look even more sinister. He exhaled slowly, his tone low and cold as steel. "You know exactly what I mean. That backpack. Where is it?" At those words, I felt myself go numb. Every muscle in my body froze. I just found it and turned it in to the police. I didn't keep anything. He let out a dry, mocking laugh, a sound so harsh it sent a chill down my spine. The other man stepped forward, grabbed my hair, and yanked my head back. Pain shot through me. You think we'd believe that? There was over 100 million in that bag, and you don't know. Tears welled up, but I forced myself to speak through the trembling. I'm telling the truth. I don't know anything. The big man stubbed out his cigarette, leaned forward, his voice dropping to a cold whisper that cut through the air. If you handed it to the police, then you must know where they're keeping it. Tell us, or do you want to find out just how much pain you can take? I trembled, my hands tightening unconsciously. And then I felt it, the cold bite of a plastic cord wrapping around my wrists. He yanked it hard. The pain was sharp, searing. A cry escaped my lips. Don't, please, don't do this. The cord cut deeper, numbing my hands. Sweat and tears blurred together. I looked around, only trees, wind, and two men who no longer had a trace of humanity left in them. I don't know. I truly don't know, I whispered, each word breaking from my throat. The man slammed his hand on the bamboo table. The wood cracked with a violent snap. You're stubborn, aren't you? But remember, we have ways to make you talk. I stayed silent. Inside my mind, only one face appeared. Officer Nam, the man who had taken the backpack that day. I knew that if I spoke, they would find him. And maybe no one would live to tell the story. I lowered my head. Tears fell, one after another. The little hut, once my only shelter, now felt cold, foreign, and terrifying. Outside, cicadas screamed endlessly, tearing through the stillness of the forest. I knew then the nightmare had truly begun. They dragged me out into the garden behind the house, where the sunlight filtered weakly through the sparse canopy, spilling patches of pale gold onto the damp ground. My wrists burned from the rope. My shoulders ached from being dragged along the dirt path. The air reeked of sweat, dry leaves, and cigarette smoke, thick enough to choke on. One of them shoved me against a bamboo trunk, barking, "Talk! Where's the stash?" I said nothing. My breath came heavy. My heart pounded in my chest. I knew. One wrong word could doom not just me, but everyone fighting to protect what was right. The heavy man crouched down, his face inches from mine. His eyes were cold, the dark lenses reflecting a broken image. A trembling woman, covered in dust and fear. "You're a tough one," he said in that low, deliberate tone that made my skin crawl. "But I don't have all day. Talk. Or shall I send your police friends a little gift?" He pulled out his phone, opened the camera, and gestured toward me. "Take the picture. Let them see the price of crossing us." The other man lifted the phone. The flash went off. A violent burst of white light that pierced straight through my chest. I bit my lip until I tasted blood. My voice came out as a trembling plea. "I don't know anything. Please, let me go." He laughed. A cruel, echoing laugh that shattered what little calm remained. "Let you go? You still think there's a way out of this?" A loud crack followed, his boot smashing against a bamboo stalk beside me. The sound echoed through the forest. Even the wind seemed to stop. I knew then, if he lost patience, my life would end here, in this lonely patch of earth where no one would ever find me. Yet even in that moment, that narrow breath between terror and silence, I clung to one fragile thought, that Nam and his team wouldn't give up, that justice, though slow, would still find its way through the forest, to me. Nam sat frozen for a few seconds. The screen's light washed his face. The tension tightened every muscle along his jaw. His hand clenched the phone so hard his knuckles went white. He understood. This was no longer mere intimidation. They were forcing him to choose between the law and a human life. A flash of my face crossed his mind. An ordinary woman who had bravely handed over the backpack full of contraband. He knew that without me, the investigation would never have come this far. Now I was being used as bait by those very criminals. He drew a deep breath. Determination brightened his eyes. "So you want me to come alone?" he muttered, voice hoarse. He called his team in a quick, clipped tone. "Prepare. We can't let them get away." Outside, dark clouds gathered. Wind blew through the window, bringing a chill that spoke of the storm to come. In the forest, I remained tied to the damp bamboo trunks, praying for one thing, that when he came, it would not be too late. Nam turned to his men, voice low and decisive. "Split into units as planned. No one moves until I give the signal." They nodded, eyes fixed on him, the man who would walk alone into the heart of their lair. In his hand was the small black bag the kidnappers had demanded. He gripped its strap, inhaled deeply, and stepped silently into the wood. The narrow path lay carpeted with fallen leaves. Light broke through the bamboo in mottled patches. The forest birds fell silent. Only Nam's footsteps threaded the measured rhythm of his breath. He knew that somewhere ahead I was being held, and that those waiting for him wanted more than the goods. The boss waited in a small clearing, a crooked smile of confidence on his face. "Good, you actually came. And alone," he said, voice long and oily. Nam set the bag down, his tone calm. "I kept my promise. Release her." The boss stared at him, eyes like ice, and signaled his men to check the bag. As they moved away, Nam stood perfectly still, his gaze tracking me as I was dragged out, battered and bloodied, but alive. When our eyes met, I saw an odd serenity in his expression, as if he had already calculated every contingency. They had no idea that each of their steps, each tiny motion, was already under the watchful eyes of Nam's teammates, hidden among the dense trees. Nam gave a slight nod. The signal had been sent. And in an instant, the once silent forest erupted. The rustle of leaves, the sharp command cutting through the air. "Surround them! Don't let anyone escape!" Shouts echoed through the trees. "Drop your weapons! You're surrounded!" The kidnappers panicked, crashing through the bamboo thickets, but before they could flee, officers swept in from every direction. The boss stumbled forward, hitting the ground hard. The black bag flew open, scattering packets of illegal goods across the dirt. Another man tried to run, but was subdued within seconds. I stood motionless, heart pounding, watching everything unfold as if in a dream. Nam moved closer, eyes still fixed on the suspects until each one was handcuffed and secured. The shouting ceased. Only the wind remained, whispering through the leaves, carrying the breath of justice restored. The boss was led away, his eyes burning with defiance, but all he met were the steady, unwavering gazes of those in uniform, the guardians of the law. Nam turned to me, gave a quiet nod, and a faint smile flickered at the corner of his lips. In that moment, I knew. The nightmare was over.
Chúng ta vừa cùng nhau đi qua một hành trình nhỏ nhưng lại chất chứa thật nhiều cảm xúc, từ những lúc buồn, những giọt nước mắt, cho đến cả những khoảnh khắc bình yên, giản dị vô cùng quý giá. bạn đã đồng hành và lắng nghe đến tận những giây phút cuối cùng. Mỗi một lượt xem, mỗi một ánh mắt dừng lại, mỗi một trái tim cùng đồng cảm đều là nguồn động lực để cho những câu chuyện như thế này được tiếp tục viết nên. Khi cuộc sống còn bộn bề, đôi khi chỉ cần những giây phút lắng lại, ta sẽ nhận ra rằng niềm tin, lòng nhân ái và sự sẻ chia luôn có sức mạnh chữa lành kỳ diệu. Và cũng chính nhờ có bạn, người không ngại dành thời gian quý giá để đồng hành, mà hành trình của nhân vật trong câu chuyện này trở nên trọn vẹn hơn, ấm áp hơn. Dù phía trước vẫn còn nhiều chông gai, nhưng chỉ cần trái tim con người biết hướng về nhau thì bóng tối nào sẽ được soi sáng bởi một tia hy vọng. Xin gửi đến bạn lời cảm ơn chân thành nhất. Hẹn gặp lại các bạn trong các tập tiếp theo, nơi câu chuyện còn tiếp tục mở ra và những bước chân kiên cường luôn mở ước lặng lẽ và niềm tin chưa bao giờ tắt. Cảm ơn các bạn rất nhiều. Chúc các bạn luôn bình an.